But the claim that end-to-end encryption is dead?
Yeah.
Please don't ever believe any crap like that.
The argument here is, yes, these concerns are valid. No, these concerns are not new. This is the exact same struggle that we have had for decades. Hello and welcome to Root Causes, the PKI and Security podcast where a pair of industry veterans talk about all matters digital certificates and PKI. We're here at Toronto Sessions Season 3. I'm Tim Callan, Chief Experience Officer at Sectigo, and of course, I'm here with Jason Sirocco, Senior Fellow at Sectigo. So, Jason, you and I looked at somebody's blog post the other day, and this guy was making the argument that AI effectively nullifies the capability for end-to-end encryption. So,
and specifically DeepSeek.
Specifically DeepSeek. So walk us through the argument on this.
The argument that was being made was that what's the purpose of end-to-end encryption? He didn't say it creates risk in encryption, or he said end-to-end encryption is dead.
Right.
And that's an extreme statement to make. And the idea was that, well, if you're going to interact with an AI system that's snooping around all your stuff, one of the other examples he gave was, I don't think he said Apple Intelligence, but he meant Apple Intelligence. Mm-hmm. In other words, AI on your phone, which is tracking a lot of things in order to understand your behaviors, in order to react as an AI.
And it's getting that stuff upstream of the encryption because it's happening inside of the device or the software process before you go out to communicate with the other party.
Right. So it's interacting with a lot of data about your behaviors and your data overall. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, and like, we spent all this effort with, the Signal app and Apple iMessage, end-to-end encryption. And he specifically talked about the lock on, which doesn't even exist anymore in a browser, right? In other words, TLS, publicly trusted certificates.
Right.
And all that's dead. And so he was throwing around end-to-end encryption, but also other forms of encryption as well, as just being, why do we do all that when we're using DeepSeek at the same time?
Right.
Well, let's address DeepSeek first.
Sure.
And in fact, maybe the next episode we're going to record, Tim, is going to be about Jason's AI stack, because I want to explain how I'm doing AI. It's a little different than most people. And one of the ways I do things a little differently is I actually run the open source DeepSeek R1 model locally. In other words, I'm not going to a cloud server and typing in intimate things about myself to...
That stuff is staying on your hard disk.
100%.
Right.
So the way I do AI is differently. So therefore, that argument in the blog post, that's the first one I want to shut down.
Okay.
So in other words, you can do AI more securely. And in fact, that's what the next episode is going to be about.
Sure.
So...
Well, and by the way, we've seen that isn't just you doing it. Like, that's a pretty common productization of AI. If you're buying an enterprise AI product, like if you're using Copilot as part of a Windows license or Microsoft Office license, that stuff is staying locally, right? That is designed that way on purpose, because the people at Microsoft understand that these concerns exist.
And offline models work really well.
Yeah.
It was a small point in the blog, but at least, we're making the point.
Fair enough.
Saying that end-to-end encryption is dead is like blaming an envelope for leaving a sensitive letter at the bar on the table.
Okay. Right.
You don't blame the envelope because of the fact that you opened the envelope and then left the letter somewhere.
Right.
Don't blame the envelope. The envelope did exactly what it should.
And also, it's not like you're going to stop using envelopes.
Exactly. And why do you not stop using envelopes? It's because let's get back to the encryption, get away from the analogy. Encryption, right, is giving you a guarantee of authenticity, integrity, confidentiality,
Right. Non-reputability. An uncertain, untampered nature. I guess that's integrity.
important.
Yeah.
That's important. Why in the world would you declare that dead? AI didn't do anything bad to that.
Yes, absolutely. Right. If the point is this is the real document that you really sent to me and it was really you and it was on this date and I can prove that it's the real document and you sent it to me. Yeah, even if AI is snooping on things it shouldn't be snooping on, it has nothing to do with any of that. There's only the secrecy, only the privacy aspect that is compromised.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
If it even is.
So I think that part of what you're seeing here is there's a few fallacies going on.
Yeah.
We won't get into it too much. It's just, I think that people are confusing security and privacy. I think they're confusing the role of encryption and what it's actually doing.
Right.
And I think that envelope analogy is the right one.
And I think, I don't want to attribute too much to that author's motivations because I don't know who it was. We just read this thing. But I think perhaps this wasn't so much a call to abandon encryption as it was being alarmed about a potential risk vector through AI that most of us aren't considering. And I think that's valid.
It is valid.
Right?
And it's been valid for a really long time, way longer than AI has been around. AI is just accelerating the problem because everybody's heard the joke, but that's not quite a joke. The government asks you to put some information on a form, like fill out a census form, and people get all up in arms, and yet they'll put 10 times more or 100 times more up on social media about themselves.
Right. Or tell you anything as long as they get free Wi-Fi.
Tell you anything.
Right.
And so, exactly right. So therefore, AI is just trying to do things with data. Yeah. And some of that data, in order to have a personal assistant, even if it's a human personal assistant, that personal assistant is going to know a lot about you.
Yes.
And if AI is serving that role, well, yeah, they're going to know a lot about you.
Yeah. Now, I think to go back to part of what you said before, this sort of depends on what are we defining as the risk. So if there is a localized agent that indeed knows a lot about me, which it is storing locally, and if we feel that we have done an adequate job of protecting that local information store from breach, for want of a better word, theft, accidental leakage, then maybe we're good with that. Like I get that it is kind of a honeypot. If everything's all in that one spot and you figure out how to get in and own that system and take it, then you get all the good stuff. Or if there's some kind of error and it's accidentally leaking it when it shouldn't be, then that's a problem. But I think this is the normal world of secure software development that we're talking about.
Tim, are you comfortable using cloud-based spreadsheets?
Absolutely.
Cloud-based word processors?
Absolutely. It's the same problem, right? Same problem. If I don't want people to know my calendar because I'm afraid I might be kidnapped because I'm a high value individual, high net worth individual, what's the real difference between somebody stole that out of Google Cloud and somebody got that off the cloud backup of my iPhone and somebody got it off of my AI tool, right? What you really just need to do is make sure that those systems are hardened as well as we know how.
So what you're saying is it's the same old story as always.
I think so.
You just got to be smart about what you're choosing to do, what you're choosing to put there.
Yeah.
And if you're a high net worth individual, you got to be extra smart because people are after your stuff.
Right.
But the claim that end-to-end encryption is dead,
yeah,
please don't ever believe any crap like that.
Yeah, I think maybe that was a clickbaity title.
So clickbaity and dumb, really dumb.
But
too.
I don't agree either.
It wasn't even clever clickbait.
Yeah.
And even the underlying point, which is, hey, what are there analogies to my privacy problems? Yeah, it's the same one we've always been facing.
Yeah.
So,
and that's my big argument here is, yes, these concerns are valid. No, these concerns are not new. This is the exact same struggle that we have had for decades and will continue to have for decades to come, which is trying to harden incredibly complicated systems that are getting more complicated all the time, that are evolving at faster rates all the time against an increasingly well-resourced set of savvy attackers who have the opportunity to gain tremendous wealth if they can figure out how to defeat our systems. And this is just living.
So here's some real basic advice to what Tim just said. You've heard this before. Don't put sensitive information into ChatGPT 4.0 on the cloud.
Right.
Don't put the same thing into DeepSeek R1 in the cloud if you happen to be using it not offline.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
So, folks,
Yeah.
be smart.
And then on the other hand, if I'm not worried about anybody figuring out my grandma's fried chicken recipe, then I can go ahead and put that in. And if other people enjoy good fried chicken, I can just be happy for them, right? So that's the other side of it, right? It kind of depends on what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the thing you want to be sensitive about, PII, customer information, stuff like that. Of course, really, really, really sensitive intellectual property like code. You want to be using very specific Copilot with your enterprise implementation is probably a really good example of how to do it right. There are lots of ways to do it wrong. So I really couldn't make any sense out of that blog post.
Yeah, I agree. So, yep, agreed with all of that. Again, my big argument is I just think that's just another way of describing what we already understand as the normal state of affairs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Thank you, Jason. This has been Root Causes.